to the top of the hour and we'll get started. Okay, everybody, it looks like it is about that time. So I think we're going to go ahead and get started. First, I just want to say hello and thank you for joining us today for the West Virginia Criminal Justice Reform Grant Information Session. My name is Candace Krell, and I'm the Grants Manager for the Greater Kanawha Valley Foundation, and I will be your host today for this webinar. Before we get started, I just want to point out a couple of things. First, when you join the webinar as an attendee, both your camera and your microphone were set to mute by default and your camera is turned off. So if you're in pajamas and enjoying a snack, don't worry, we cannot see or hear you, so you're safe. Second, we will be recording this webinar and it will be made available later on our website if you'd like to revisit it. And we're also streaming live on Facebook. So if you found us that way, welcome. And then one last note, at the bottom of your screen, you will notice a Q&A feature. We will be using that for our Q&A at the end of this webinar. So if you have a question, please feel free to go to the Q&A section, put in your question, and we'll be answering those when we circle around at the end of this webinar. Okay, I think that is all the announcements that I have for now. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Michelle Foster, who is the TGKVF President and CEO.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. These are rough times. We know we're all going through it. But it's wonderful that you are making time to learn about this opportunity that we have, and we're doing our best to press forward with the work of the foundation. So thank you for being here. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to frame the foundation for you, just give you an overview of who we are, what we do. So for those of you who may not be as familiar, we'll share that with you. We are a community foundation, which means that we bundle a number of funds. We currently have 533 funds that make up the foundation. And as of the end of 2019, our assets were 266 million. With the recent volatility in the market, who knows where we are? We'll find out when we have our investment committee meeting. But we are the largest community foundation, not only in West Virginia, but also in Central Appalachia. Our primary grant making is in 6 counties, so we're place-based. Boone, Clay, Fayette, Kanawha, Lincoln, and Putnam. However, for special initiatives, we do go outside this footprint. We are focused on community wealth building, so just growing those assets within our community is what we're all about. And collaboration is a key focus of ours. We encourage our grantees to collaborate. And as a grant maker, we also collaborate within our state, within the Appalachian region, and even wider. As this new partnership we've established will show you where our collaborators are as far as in California. Our vision is that all people in our community will prosper, especially those who are poor, those who are low wealth, and those who are marginalized. So we are about, we're forward thinking, we're connected to our community, and we're fearlessly working to promote prosperity for everyone, not just a select few. With regards to our mission, we grow the different forms of wealth in our community so that our community can thrive. And we invest so that in ways that we can grow those different forms of wealth. And when I refer to forms of wealth, there are 8 areas of wealth that we grow, from individual, where it's about building personal capacity, intellectual, increasing knowledge, social, developing those trust, those relationships within people within the community, natural, build, political, financial, and also cultural. We added this new form of wealth within the last year or so because we find ourselves engaged in more and more collaborative activities with regards to arts and cultural projects, creative placemaking, and many others. What I want to make sure you understand is that philanthropy is more than financial investments. Actually, the word philanthropy means love of humankind. So, and anyone who expresses that love can be considered a philanthropist, whether you give your time volunteering, your talents, as well as your finances. So philanthropy, we're all philanthropists. If we give anything, whether it's our time, talent, or our treasures to anyone, we're really being a philanthropist. We don't have to be Oprah to be a philanthropist. We're all philanthropists. And when it comes to institutional philanthropy, like a foundation like ours, we are more than those investments. Yes, We receive generous donations from people in the community who have established the various funds. We leverage assets from various sources through our collaborations, through our partnerships. Yes, that is a big part of what we do. However, leadership, influence, and advocacy is another big part of what we do. We are leaders in the philanthropy space. We work with others to bring light, to shine a light on those issues that need to change in our community. We also convening is another area where we work together with others to bring people together for increased knowledge. We also not only provide capacity building opportunities ourselves, but we also work with others to bring those opportunities to nonprofits in the area and others who share our mission. So when for some reason, when we throw a party, like the fact that you guys are here today, whenever we throw a gathering, people show up. So that is another big part of what we do. And building that capacity, we want to get to the point where nonprofits outgrow us. So it's because our resources are but so much, but we want to strengthen the nonprofits we partner with, strengthen them so much that they get to the point where they can graduate from us and then work on getting larger sources of funding from federal, from state, from national foundations. So that is a big part of what we do as well, building capacity. Our grant making is primarily responsive, what we call responsive, and proactive. So under responsive, we fund projects that provide for basic needs, whether it's for shelter, for food, those basic needs that so many in our community need. Then arts and culture is a big part. So we fund a number of festivals, community festivals, from Multi-Fest to Festival, to number of programs at the Clay Center, and just FootMad, just a wide variety of arts and cultural projects. Our proactive grant making is in health, education, and community economic development. So that's where we spend a lot of our time through our competitive grant making process. However, beyond this, we have a number of special initiatives. We have giving circles, like we've got the Dickinson Family Giving Circle, and they focus in certain areas. We have the African American Giving Circle. We have an anonymous donor who gives money every year, that gives $1 million, actually, significant dollars every year, that she wants to get out to the community within the year. So that funds special dental as well as emergency aid projects. This partnership that we have, this criminal justice reform partnership, is also a unique opportunity as well. And I just wanted to say also, before I get into this, that we are very mindful of the COVID-19 epidemic. So we have established a fund that's been, almost totally depleted now, and hopefully we'll be able to add some dollars to it. But we're really cognizant of the needs that the pandemic has brought upon our community. So we've got some special dollars allocated for that as well. So it's just not just proactive and responsive, but a number of special opportunities as well. Today we're gathered to learn more, to share with you more about the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative partnership that we've established. This was established late last year. In January, we hosted an info session, an in-person info session, where a gathering is what we called it, where we brought together a number of stakeholders within the criminal justice reform space, just to understand more about what is already existing in West Virginia, and also to learn of the priorities of the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. So we are now at the point where we are opening it up to competitive grant making. This is actually, we had a first batch of grantees. Those grantees were directed by our partner, and now we're opening it up to a more competitive grant making process. We're a part of a number of regional networks, including the Appalachia Funders Network. So our partnership with CZI came through our affiliation and our engagement with the Appalachia Funders Network. The focus of this partnership is on criminal justice reform. So not only policy proposals, our first batch of grantees were all policy programs, policy initiatives, but we're also open, our partners are also open to program proposals that seek to reduce the number of people who are going to prison and reducing the likelihood of those who have had some experience with the criminal justice system that we stop the cycle. We close that revolving door. It's a donor advised fund, started off with $1 million. Donor advised means that our donor is very engaged in the process. CZI is very, very engaged in the process. And this is one of those initiatives that expands beyond our 6-county primary region. So anywhere, anyone, any organization in the state is eligible to apply for support from this initiative. So we're just not limited to our 6-county region. And I believe that is all for me. We'll have questions later at the end. So I turn it back over to our host, Candace.
Thank you, Michelle. So now I'm going to turn it over to Rosa Cabrera, who is our partner at CZI, and we've been working really closely with Rosa to develop these grants, and we're just so excited that she can join us today. Rosa, are you here?
I'm here. Good morning.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, fantastic. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm really happy to be here. So just a little bit about Chan Zuckerberg. So Chan Zuckerberg has 3 core initiatives. They are a result of the passion of our co-founders, Mark Zuckerberg and Dr. Priscilla Chan, who is a pediatrician and was also a teacher. And so they started Chan Zuckerberg as a means to honor their children and to create a better world for them as they grow up. So there's 3 key focuses. One is focused on science, which has a biohub, a human cell atlas, and really focuses on finding cures for rare diseases. And in fact, now is very involved in trying to find a cure for COVID-19 with scientists kind of across the country. The second is around education. It really focuses on learning science for the whole child. The third is focused on justice and opportunity, which is where this portfolio sits and where this particular body of work is funded. And it focuses on criminal justice reform, housing affordability, and immigration reform. So just a little bit about criminal justice. I know there are a lot of folks on this call that are in the work already, but just to provide a little bit of context from the vantage point that we see the issue. So we know that there are between 70 and 100 million people in the United States that have a criminal record. Roughly 2.3 million of those people are incarcerated in the United States, and of those, 1.3 million are in state prisons. We also know that, generally speaking, the criminal justice movement writ large as a national movement has the goal of cutting the incarcerated population by 50% in 20 years. It's a very ambitious goal, and we know that if the pace of social change continues at the current rate, that we actually wouldn't reach that goal until 2070. so we proceed from the premise that this level of incarceration negatively influences nearly every important aspect of human welfare, from employment to poverty, housing, education, family cohesion, and civic engagement. CZI has set forth two main North Stars. There are so many ways to impact the criminal justice system, and we have chosen these two goals as a way for us to invest our resources in a way that's targeted. And so we focus, one, on decarceration, which means that we want to deeply and sustainably reduce jail and prison and supervised populations. And we also want to provide second chances because we believe that system-impacted people deserve opportunities for redemption, recovery, and stability. So my portfolio at Chan Zuckerberg is called the State Justice Accelerator. And we have chosen to focus on states and state infrastructure. And so while state prisons are only one aspect of incarceration, we focus there because, as we saw on the previous slide, state prisons hold the majority of the incarcerated population. And so, give or take, we know that the daily population of those in state prisons could be around 1.3 million, about 600,000 in local jails, and about 200,000 in federal prisons. And if you look at the percentage of folks that are in those institutions on felonies, we see that 100% of folks in state prisons are there because they've been convicted of a felony, 30 to 50% in local jails, and 100% in federal prison. And this also shows us that if we're going to advance meaningful criminal justice reform, we also have to address the way that folks who are convicted of felonies are treated and are given opportunities both while they're incarcerated as well as when they come home to actually be successful as they re-enter their communities. So the State Justice Accelerator is really focused on a state-by-state approach. We have a grant-making strategy, which is why we're all on this call. We also support advocacy, which we see as key to reducing incarceration by changing statewide laws. And we also engage in capacity building, which is really focused on increasing the capacity of our partner grantees to be their most powerful selves. So if, for example, an organization needs support in organizing or power building or in developing their internal communications capacity, we also provide that kind of training and support to our grantee partners. And so we want to make sure that we're establishing solid infrastructure in the states where we're hoping to leave a footprint by making sure that state level wins are properly implemented, that they're protected against repeal, and that the wins could be leveraged into the future. So our initial cohort of states for the State Justice Accelerator just started. And so the first three states include West Virginia, Kentucky, and North Carolina. We're hoping to continue to focus in the southern states. We want to be in a part of the country that we feel warrants additional investment and where we felt we could make a difference. And so we chose each of these states for specific reasons. We hope to expand to other southern states in the future, but for now we're kind of digging our heels into these three states, and we're incredibly happy to be in West Virginia. So our approach to this model is to really have our partners in these three states operate as a cohort. And so statewide, we would love for our partners to work locally with each other. We, as Chan Zuckerberg, as the funder, are hoping, and our goal is that we're showing up with great deference to all of you and with humility, as you are the experts in your state. We are here to support your work. We are not here to direct it. We want to support your leadership. And we also hope to fill in the gaps across the state where there may be a need to seed money for new organizations or to expand the capacity of existing organizations to do more things that they wish they could do if there was more funding available. We also see it as our role as a major national funder to attract other national funders and to build your in-state ecosystem so that there is more interest and support for criminal justice reform in the state of West Virginia. And then finally, we also want to make sure that we are creating a learning community between our grantees in all 3 states. We'd like to connect similarly situated organizations so that you can learn with and from each other and also serve as a support to you. So why West Virginia? Well, we know that over the last 30 years, the number of West Virginians incarcerated has grown nearly 5-fold, despite a decline in the state's population over this time. While most states are experiencing a decline in incarceration, West Virginia is not. And so we know that from 2007 to 2017, West Virginia's prison population grew by over 17%, which was the 5th highest growth rate in the nation. Additionally, West Virginia has the highest rate of juvenile offenders in custody in the nation at 329 per 100,000 juveniles. The state of West Virginia's prison population averaged a growth of 73% from 2000 to 2010, costing the state $170 million. The steep rise is not due to rising crime rates, but the policy choices that are being made to use imprisonment as a response. We also know that there are some disparities here. We know that African Americans are incarcerated in West Virginia prisons at a rate that is 3.5 times the imprisonment of Caucasians. We know that 1 out of 36 Black males in West Virginia is in prison. And while African Americans make up only 3.5% of West Virginia's population, they make up 11.7% of the state's prison population. We also know and are very concerned that the number of women in prison in West Virginia has grown 13-fold over the last 4 decades. In 2016, the female imprisonment rate in West Virginia was 95 per 100,000 females, while the national average was 64 per 100,000 females. From 1990 to 2016, West Virginia experienced the largest growth in female imprisonment in the nation. And so all of these things and some other factors really created, we think, both an opportunity and great concern that West Virginia needs additional investment. We've met with incredible leaders in your state who are already doing phenomenal work around criminal justice, and we want to continue to expand that portfolio to make sure that the entirety of the state has an opportunity to advance meaningful change. Excuse me. So I'm going to take a pause there and just say that is the kinds of work we're interested in funding in general, and that's the work that we want to continue to fund. We also are in this crazy moment in time with COVID-19 and facing a global pandemic, and we want to be responsive and responsible as funders to that. And so we also are instituting a slight shift from the kind of work that we typically fund to free up resources to also make grants that are responsive to COVID-19. And so we know that jails and prisons do not have the ability to safely respond to COVID-19. And as a result, several advocates in your state and in states across the country are pushing for early release of folks, for example, who are incarcerated who have release dates within the next few months, for compassionate release for the elderly, for folks that have nonviolent, non-sexual, non-serious crimes that are incarcerated. And so we also are looking at having responsive grants for organizations that are providing reentry services to those coming out as a result of early release, who are able to provide transitional housing, behavioral health, food, et cetera, et cetera. And so there's kind of 2 buckets here, and we are working with folks in your state to try to figure out how we can best be responsive. I'm sure there will be some questions around this specifically, but hopefully this isn't clear as mud, but one, there's the traditional criminal justice advocacy work that we fund, and then we're also trying to be responsive to the moment and to think about how we can also support folks doing reentry work right now as folks are starting to come home. So I'm going to take a pause there and just see if there's any questions. And Candace, not sure if you want questions now or at the end, but I'll leave that to you.
Yeah, so if you have any questions with Rosa, please feel free to go ahead and type them in the Q&A feature, which will be down at the bottom of your screen. And Rosa, if it's okay with you, we'll just circle back with those at the end of the webinar, and we can answer any of those questions.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, so now we're going to turn it over to Stephanie Heyer, who is our Senior Program Officer at the Greater Kanawha Valley Foundation. And Stephanie is going to walk you through the process here at TGKVF. So Steph, whenever you are ready, go ahead.
Okay, well, hi everyone. As Candace said, my name is Stephanie. I'm Senior Program Officer here at the Greater Kanawha Valley Foundation. And just want to reiterate what's already been said in terms of thank you for joining us today. And we are excited to move forward, even as we face the challenges that COVID-19 has flung in all of our way. So the slide you have here talks about the focus of this opportunity in West Virginia. There are basically two application types that we've created in collaboration with Rosa and her team at Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. Those are policy kinds of proposals that focus on statewide or policy level work that is promoting criminal justice reform, and then also programmatic kinds of proposals that focus more on direct service and directly serving formerly incarcerated or currently incarcerated individuals. And then as Rosa just mentioned, in response to COVID-19, it sounds like there'll be some availability there if you have a program that is specifically responding to those challenges and how they impact our incarcerated populations here in West Virginia. I'll quickly say that the program level application requires a logic model. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, but the policy level application does not have that same requirement. The next slide that you have in front of you talks a little bit about our application timeline. And so a couple of important dates that you want to mark your calendar around are July 8th, which is when the final application is due via our online grant management system. And typically we require that those come in by about 4 o'clock on the due date. So that is July 8th. The application will go live on Friday of this week, on April 10th. You can find it on our website, and we'll talk more specifically about that a little bit later in this webinar. The final notification for applicants who have submitted a proposal will be September 18th. And then just as a reminder, and we'll reiterate that throughout the process that our partners at Chan Zuckerberg Initiative will have the final say in all funding decisions. So they will work closely with us and have been very involved in the process, and will review applications and communicate with us regarding which of those will move their priorities forward here in West Virginia. Our review process has a few different steps. After the submission deadline, the applications will aggregate those and send them to our Chan Zuckerberg partners. And Rosa and her team will review and vet those proposals initially. The next step will be when CZI sends us their top ranking applications or those that they want to be considered for funding. So a second review will then be done by our TGKVF Criminal Justice Reform, and we abbreviate it as CJR, stakeholder group. And so that stakeholder group includes experts in the criminal justice field in West Virginia, including folks with lived experience, organization representatives working at the policy level, organization representatives working directly with incarcerated and formerly incarcerated individuals, folks from the Public Defender's Office, and others. So these are our West Virginia locals who work intimately in criminal justice reform and with our incarcerated populations, and they know the landscape here in West Virginia. And they will review Chan-Zuckerberg initiatives, vetted proposals, and then share any feedback that they might have with our partners at CZI. And then, as I mentioned, final approval will come from our partners at Chan-Zuckerberg Initiative. So we have here a slide about how criminal justice reform may intersect with some of the Greater Kanawha Valley Foundation's priority areas. And we've pulled a few examples here from the program level application logic model. These are just a few examples of ways that criminal justice reform might intersect with some other sectors. But this is certainly not an all-inclusive list, and you may have ideas of other ways that criminal justice reform overlaps or responds to other sector work. So we know that criminal justice doesn't exist in a vacuum, independent of other sectors and issue areas. And so with this in mind, many of you on the call today might be working toward criminal justice reform without calling it by that name. For example, some workforce development programs working to educate and train disenfranchised populations may be serving formerly incarcerated folks. Others working on adult literacy may be helping formerly incarcerated individuals achieve academically, or others may be helping formerly incarcerated individuals find adequate housing. I've heard that some places estimate the number of prisons to build based on the reading proficiency of its population. And so we know that these things are all related. As such, some of the projects you have in mind might overlap with education, health, and community economic development, which are some of Greater Kanawha Valley Foundation's proactive priority areas. However, your project idea is not required to overlap with these areas. It may or it may not, and we'll really leave that up to you all as experts in this field to let us know what kind of project you have in mind, and we're just eager to learn from you all through this process. So in the slide, you see some examples of education and criminal justice that are referenced from our logic model. I'll just touch on education briefly. You know, if you are working in the education space that also has some criminal justice elements, a project might entail more individuals enrolled in post-secondary certification, training, and degree-yielding educational programs while incarcerated. Or returning citizens have increased access to post-secondary certification, training, and degree-yielding educational programs. Those are just a couple of examples of ways that criminal justice reform might intersect with education, and certainly the list is much longer than that. So with that, I will turn it over to our health program officer, Megan Simpson, to share a couple of examples of how health and criminal justice reform might intersect.
All right, thanks so much, Stephanie. And these are just some health examples for you all. And I will say that my internet connection has not been healthy during this call. So if I get booted off, I apologize. In health, we're looking at increased access to effective health care, such as dental care and mental health services post-incarceration, increased access to substance use disorder treatment and recovery, and returning citizens receive substance use disorder treatment and recovery support. So again, these are examples. They can be found on our logic model, but please reach out to me with other health-related topics that may fit. Thank you, and I'm going to turn it over now to our Community Economic Development Program Officer, Todd Dorcas.
Thank you, Megan. So the three examples of medium to long-term outcomes within community economic development are 1, increases in the number of employed returning citizens, 2, increases in the number of new businesses started by returning citizens, and 3, increased number of local regional employers with positive hiring policies for returning citizens. Now, outcomes such as these are being highlighted by the notion that returning citizens being an overlooked source of talent. That's gaining a lot of traction these days. And so those are just your 3 examples of medium to long-term outcomes within community economic development.
Thanks, Todd. So we'll move on to our contact information. And just to reiterate, those examples that we shared, those are potential examples that might be direct service related or part of a program level application. But as Rosa mentioned earlier, Chan Zuckerberg Initiative is also really interested in, maybe even primarily interested in, advocacy level work that is happening statewide. So you have a few different avenues, a few different options you could move forward with in terms of an application through this state accelerator project. You have all of our contact information here. Our health program officer, Megan Simpson. My name is Stephanie Heyer. I lead our education grant making. Todd Dorcas, who you just heard from with Community Economic Development. Candace Krell is our grants manager at Greater Kanawha Valley Foundation. She's also the host of this webinar and can provide you any assistance you might need with technical support. We'll hear more from Candace later around the application process. And then also Derek Vance is our program officer that leads special initiatives and basic needs. Derek will be responding to any applications that don't seem to really neatly fit into health education or community economic development. He will also be your contact if you have a COVID related application that you'd like to share with the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. And he will be staffing that criminal justice reform stakeholder group that I mentioned earlier, that's made up of experts in the field that are familiar with the landscape in West Virginia specifically.
All right, thank you so much, Stephanie. Now we're gonna move on to some application pro tips, and then I'm gonna walk you through the application, just do a brief overview. So for the application pro tips, we always recommend that you use Internet Explorer. That tends to work better with our software. So if you can, go ahead and use that. If you use Google Chrome especially, that can be a little bit glitchy and can sometimes result in lost work. So we always recommend using Internet Explorer. Also, save all narrative responses in a Word document and then copy and paste it into the online application. That will also, you'll have a record of what you submitted, but then if for some reason the application were to time out, you wouldn't have lost all your work. You can go back and have that information available. And then discuss your project idea with a program officer. Our program officers are very knowledgeable and they can help walk you through the application process and maybe offer some guidance there. And then good advice for everybody. Just don't wait until the last minute. Things come up sometimes and that can just be stressful. So to avoid that, if possible, just don't wait until the last minute. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and walk you through our application, but the first thing I'm gonna do is show you how to access that. So we have created a page on our website. So you would visit tgkvf.org, go to the special initiatives section of the site, where you will see a Chan Zuckerberg Initiative page. And on that page, you'll have the link to apply. There's going to be other information to the link to the application, the link to be able to access your saved applications, and then other documents that you can upload with your application. So there are a lot of resources there. Additionally, the application will go live on April 10th, 2020. That's what Stephanie had said earlier. So if you do try to access it before then, it will not be available, but will go live the morning of April 10th. Okay. And just access this, this is our website. You would go to special initiatives, and then you go down to the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, where you'll find the link to apply. I do want to make a point here while we're at this point. If you click on this link multiple times, it will always open a new application, which can be disconcerting because you'll open it up and it'll appear as though your application is blank. If you get into your application and you save it, when you go back to it, you'll want to go ahead and use this link to access your in-progress applications. I get some panicky calls where people have started their application, it's gone, it's usually not gone, it's just you have to use a different link to access that. So I do want to point that out. There's also some documentation here for the criminal justice reform logic model, which we'll talk about later, and then the line item budget, but these items are also linked in the application and you can access those from within the application as well. Okay, so when you log into the application, if you are a first-time user, you'll want to hit this new applicant button. If you've never applied with anything with us before, you'll go ahead and set up your own account. So you'll put in your email and password. You'll want to make a note of this. This will be how you access your saved applications, what you use for future applications if you apply with us. So you'll want to make a note of this information. Unfortunately, we cannot reset your password. If you do need to reset your password, you'll use this forgot password link here. But since I have an account and I have my password, I'm going to go ahead and log in. And wait patiently while it loads. Let's see. Actually, let's try it again. There we go. Just needed to get the glitches out. So this is what our application will look like. This is the front page of the application. We do have what's called an eligibility quiz, where you'll tell us the type of proposal that you're planning on working on, whether it's a policy, program, or a combination of program and policy, and determining which choice you use. That will determine which application you go to. For this, I'm going to do the program application because it's a little bit more in depth. The policy application is similar, but it's a little bit more of a simple application. A couple things I want to point out here. We do have contact information here within the application. So if you're working and you need to shoot off an email to get a quick answer, you can actually just click on those and they will bring up an email and you can just send that out to us. So that's an easy way for you to contact us from within the application. For technical support, I've also listed my phone number there if you have any questions. You can navigate the application multiple ways by clicking up at the top and going from tab to tab, or you can fill in all of the information and when you get to the bottom, you can hit next. And that will also take you to the next tab. So there's a couple different ways that you can navigate that. I'm not going to go through every question, but there are questions there. If you're going through the application and you do have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to us. That's what we're here for. We are a resource to help you through the application process. One thing I do want to point out is on the milestones and learning tab. That's where you're going to find our logic model. Conveniently, it's actually linked right in to the application, so you don't even have to get out of the application to access that. I just want to go over a few key terms quickly with you. This is going to be a very quick overview. So if you have questions, again, please reach out to us. This can be a really complicated logic model, and we want to definitely help. So here are your outputs. Outputs are the direct products of program activities, and they're going to demonstrate what was produced. So examples can be people served, numbers of policy or legislation supported. They're going to be things from your project that you can count. Then we're going to go on to your outcomes. We'll have short-term, medium-term, and long-term outcomes. Medium-term and long-term outcomes, we just have you tell us which ones you are planning on tracking, but then you do not have to report on those. The only outcomes that you're going to report on are short-term outcomes. And an outcome is a level of performance or achievement that's occurred because of the activity of the services that your organization has provided. So you can think of these as like performance outcomes. Because of our work that we did, our participants achieved these performance outcomes. And we have those listed here. Since we do have the forms of wealth, our short-term outcomes do relate back to our forms of wealth. And I'll show you how this relates to the application shortly. So I'm gonna close out of the logic model. Again, if you need any help, there's contact information there. This is where we're going to get into demographics. And I just wanna go over these very quickly with you. With the number of unduplicated people to be served by the project, this is a target. It does not have to be exact. You're just going to guess how many people will be served by your project. The same goes for your demographics. What we're looking for here is a breakdown of the people that you plan to serve. So if you say that you're going to serve 100 people here, then we want to see a breakdown here with the ethnicity. We also have age group, gender, and county. So we're just looking for guesses. It doesn't have to be what you report later on. We're just trying to get an estimate of who you think that you'll be serving. If you are serving people outside of the 6-county area, there's also a box here where you can put in the county and the number of individuals that you plan to reach. In our logic model, I showed you the short-term outcomes. They are listed here, as well as you can see they're listed under the form of wealth that they relate to. One point I do want to make quickly is that you do not have to choose every single outcome on this list. We recommend only choosing a few just to not overwhelm yourself and make sure that they are relevant to your project. However, in the application, if it's not relevant and it's not a measurement you've chosen, just put a 0 in, and then you can go on to the next field. Unfortunately, you do have to put something in to be able to move on. So it looks like there's a lot of work there, but if they're not relevant, just put a 0 and you can move on. And then here we have our attachments page. There is certain criteria here that you can meet. And if you do meet that criteria, then you need to upload some supplemental documentation. So please review that financial information. And then underneath that, you will have other supporting materials. You will complete a logic model if it's a program proposal. That's linked here. And then also a line item budget, which you can access right here. Anything that is listed as required will have required next to it. So you want to make sure that you do upload that, or when you go to submit, it's going to give you an error message and you'll have to upload that. At this point, I can hit save and finish later. If I do save and finish later, that's where I will come and use the access your in progress application link so that I can access this application at a later date. If everything looks good, I can hit review and submit. It will show me an example. I have not put anything in, so I have a ton of errors. Hopefully you will not see this much red when you submit. It'll show you your application so you can review it easily. And then when you're done, you can hit update and you can submit your application. Okay, that was a lot. If you have any questions, please go ahead and put those in the Q&A section. And I'm going to pass it over to Derek, who's going to be monitoring the Q&A and help walk us through that. But please, if you have any questions, put those in so that we can get to those for you.
Thanks, Candace. We do have a couple questions so far. The first is a question for Rosa. It's from James. He's asking, will CZI be open to joint proposals from nonprofits? And in James's circumstance, he works for a nonprofit that works to repair and build homes across Central Appalachia, including all 3 of the states that CZI has chosen to work in at this time period. They have partners in Charleston, West Virginia, who conduct reentry programs for formerly incarcerated individuals. And he wants to know if they propose jointly to provide construction training and home repair through a partner program that's working with formerly incarcerated individuals. Would that be possible? And if so, would it be seen as one application or all?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, we, yeah, joint proposals are definitely great. We're very open, and that sounds great, actually. Yeah, look forward to hearing more about that.
Great. The next question is from Laura. She's asking if copies of the slideshow and video will be made available. I do believe that the foundation will be posting those on our website, so you'll be able to find those in the coming days. The next question has to deal with the anticipated funding range. I can answer this one. The foundation's grant size typically is between $30,000 and $50,000, but there are grants that are lower than that, and there are grants that are higher than that. We would recommend reaching out to one of the program officers to discuss what your proposal would look like. If any other program officers would like to jump in on that, that's fine. Move on to the next question then. Laura is asking if individuals or groups can apply for COVID-19 funding before this grant. I know at our foundation, we've set up a fund for COVID response. If you're interested in learning more about that, I would recommend reaching out to one of the program officers, myself, Megan, Todd, or Stephanie.
And let Rosa respond to that for their special, their special fund.
Yeah, we would, I would also be interested in folks who are doing the kinds of things that I mentioned, providing immediate transitional housing, behavioral health services, kind of all of those basic needs. So if you have a need now, you can also feel free to reach out to me directly for that. And I'm sure that my information will be shared with the information that goes out as a result of this webinar.
Looks like those are all the questions at this time, but if anyone has any additional questions, feel free to type them in the Q&A feature now. Answer those as they come in.
Someone put a question in the chat. How about eligibility of government nonprofits in applying for the policy grant? Rosa, you want to? I guess as long as they have a, I guess it depends on the 501 status of the government nonprofit, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, it would depend on.
It depends, yeah.
Yeah.
So reach out to a program officer, and we'll figure it out once we know exactly what you're talking about.
There's one more question. This is asking, what is the grant duration? Specifically for the logic model, is a short-term outcome a few months, 30 to 60 days. I'll refer this to Candace or one of our other program officers to answer.
Short-term or 1 year?
Mm-hmm.
1 year outcomes, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, one more question just came in from Fred. Fred says, we are a community corrections program that oversees day report centers, reentry, and pretrial release programs in the Northern Panhandle region of West Virginia, which includes Brooke, Hancock, Marshall, Ohio, Tyler, and Wetzel counties. Is their group eligible for funding?
Yes, because we were open to any state, any organization within the state. Someone is putting a message in the chat. Let's see. We have many recovery residences in the state that have lost funds from COVID-19 because their residents have lost jobs and are not able to pay for their rent. As of now, the operators are absorbing the costs. Should I refer them here to try to find sustainability for their programming? I'd say yes. Yes, Emily. This is from Emily Burkhead, yes. And I think this would tie directly to the special funding that Rosa mentioned. So you'll be able to reach out to Rosa directly since it's COVID-19 related.
Another question just came in. Do organizations have to have a 501c3 status before applying? With the Greater Kanawha Valley Foundation, we fund organizations that do have 501c3 status and also units of government. So those are the two criteria, one of those two, to apply for funding with us.
With us, not necessarily. Not necessarily.
If anyone else has any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A. Otherwise, we'll be wrapping up here shortly. So if now's the time, if you have a question, to go ahead and put those in there.
There's one more. What is the longevity of the long-term program?
The long-term program, I'm not sure I understand that.
Yeah, perhaps you could clarify your question, Laura. Not sure we're understanding.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is what they're talking about, but all of our grants are 12-year or 12-month grants. So they're a 1-year program. I'm not sure if that's what you're looking for there.
That is what she was asking about.
Okay, perfect.
Clarified.
Yeah, someone is asking, will the PowerPoint be available on the, yes, the PowerPoint, Jennifer, yes, the PowerPoint will be available on our website.
And we are also recording this webinar, and we'll make that available as well in case you need to revisit that.
And it's on Facebook Live, so that video will be out there as well.
One more question. Should we tell other people to contact you as in the foundation or CZI, who need this funding? I would say if there is another organization interested in this funding, get them in contact with one of our program officers at the foundation.
Okay.
All right, it looks like we're slowing down questions, so I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up. I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. I know we're all busy and scattered around, but thank you for coming, Rosa. Thank you for joining us, and everyone just have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everyone. Be safe.
Thank you.
Thanks all.